Imagine looking at your phone at the end of the day and realizing an entire unbroken 7-hour work shift of your life has completely vanished.
Just totally gone. Yeah.
Right. You have nothing to show for it. No project completed, no meaningful conversation had, just a battery in the red, a vague sense of anxiety, and a feeling that your own time doesn't belong to you anymore.
It's an awful feeling, honestly.
It really is. So if you are listening to this, you are the learner, you value your time, you are fiercely curious, and you're likely feeling the friction of an increasingly noisy world.
Oh, absolutely. Noise is everywhere now.
Exactly. And today we are undertaking a custom-tailored deep dive to cut through that noise. We are dissecting a recorded conversation between two people, David and Emma, centered on reclaiming focus, which is basically a strategy for digital detox.
Yeah. And it's a remarkable source document because, it bypasses the abstract theory of tech addiction. It drops us right into the messy, relatable reality of trying to get your brain back from your devices.
Yeah, the actual day-to-day struggle.
Right. It breaks down the underlying mechanics of digital distraction and, more importantly, offers a really practical blueprint for escaping it.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because we were dropping right into the deep end with David's wake-up call.
Oh, yeah, it's a rough one.
Definitely. So David approaches his friend Emma deeply unsettled. He's realized his smartphone usage is sabotaging his studies and ruining his sleep. But the catalyst for this panic isn't just a feeling. It is raw data.
The numbers don't lie.
They really don't. He opens his screen time report and sees that he is spending almost 7 hours a day glued to a screen. Mostly late-night social media scrolling and endless video loops.
Which is so common, unfortunately.
Yeah, and Emma immediately relates. She notes that when she faced the same crisis months earlier, her absolute first step was tracking her time to get a cold, hard number.
You have to start there. You just have to.
Exactly. And I read this and immediately thought of a financial bank statement. Like when you tap your card for a $4 coffee or a quick $12 lunch, the friction is so low that the expense feels entirely insignificant.
Yeah, it's a quick tap. You don't even think about it.
Right. But then you get your statement at the end of the month, you see the final balance, and you realize those tiny frictionless microtransactions have completely bankrupted your account.
The financial analogy is spot on because it highlights a critical flaw in human perception. I mean, we are completely blind to the compounding nature of small actions.
We really are.
In digital spaces, time becomes incredibly elastic. Your brain's internal clock relies on environmental markers and sensory changes to gauge the passage of time.
Like the sun going down or people moving around.
Exactly. But when you're staring at a screen, the sensory input is artificially managed and entirely static. You aren't moving, the lighting isn't changing, the physical environment just sort of fades away.
But honestly, part of me hears this and thinks, 7 hours, come on. How do you not physically feel your body sitting on a couch for a quarter of the entire day?
It's crazy, right?
I just find it hard to believe someone can just lose that much time by accident.
Well, it sounds impossible until you understand the psychology of flow states and cognitive rationalization. Your brain is brilliant at protecting your ego.
What do you mean by that?
So if you feel like you are just, relaxing for a minute, your brain will actively suppress the physical discomfort of sitting too long to maintain that narrative.
Oh, wow. So it literally tricks you.
Yeah, it really does. You cannot change a baseline behavior until you bypass that rationalization, which is the precise psychological necessity of Emma's first step. Tracking generates undeniable data.
The numbers are just right there.
Right. The screen time report doesn't care about your intentions.
Yeah.
And it doesn't care that you only meant to look for a second. It strips away the ego's defense mechanism and forces you to endure the shock of reality.
It's like ripping off a Band-Aid.
Exactly. You have to experience that data-driven friction to generate the momentum needed for actual change.
Which brings us to David's defense, the lie we have all told ourselves. He confesses to Emma that his intention is never to waste hours. His genuine plan is to watch short videos for just 5 minutes.
Just 5 minutes. We've all been there.
Always 5 minutes. But inevitably, an entire hour dissolves. And again, playing devil's advocate here, is this just a massive cop-out?
How so?
Well, if David knows he shouldn't be scrolling, why doesn't he just summon the discipline to close the app? Is David just suffering from a lack of personal willpower, or is he playing a rigged game?
What's fascinating here is that relying on willpower is fundamentally misunderstanding the battlefield. David isn't failing a personal discipline test. He is losing a rigged game.
So it's not his fault.
Not entirely, no. Emma points this out clearly. Social media platforms and video apps are actively architected by thousands of brilliant engineers to neutralize human willpower. They are not neutral tools.
That's a scary thought.
It is.
Yeah.
The user flow is designed entirely around the concept of frictionless continuation.
Like a casino.
Better than a casino, actually, because it lives right in your pocket.
Think about how human beings historically consume information.
In the physical world, activities have natural stopping cues. A newspaper has a back page. A chapter ends. Historically, even television networks signed off late at night.
Oh, right. The screen would just go to static.
Exactly. These stopping cues give the brain a crucial moment to pause, assess, and decide whether to continue. The digital spaces Emma and David are discussing have aggressively eradicated those stopping cues.
The infinite scroll.
The infinite scroll, the auto-playing of the next video before the current one even finishes. These mechanisms are engineered to bypass the executive functioning part of David's brain.
The part that makes decisions.
Right, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for saying, okay, the task is complete, time to move on. Without a stopping cue, it requires an immense active spike of cognitive energy to break the trance.
So you have to actively fight it.
Yes. The platform turns a 5-minute intention into an hour-long session by ensuring his brain never receives the biological signal to stop.
So, if our brains are battling a frictionless environment engineered to never end, how do we physically restructure our surroundings to level the playing field?
You have to build boundaries.
Right. And Emma shares 3 very specific tactical solutions with David to introduce that missing friction back into his life. First, she set rigid daily app limits that literally lock her out of her most addictive platforms once she hits a time cap.
That's a great hard boundary.
It is. Second, she advises keeping the phone completely out of reach in another room if possible while studying. And third, she tells him to completely disable unnecessary notifications.
Because David had complained about constant buzzing breaking his concentration, right?
Yeah, exactly. To me, this is exactly like putting the junk food on the highest shelf in the pantry or keeping it out of the house completely so you don't have to rely on willpower at all. If the junk food isn't within arm's reach at 10 p.m., you don't have to fight the urge to eat it.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the junk food metaphor perfectly illustrates the neurological reality of the dopamine system. Well, why are physical distance and muting notifications so profoundly effective? It's about removing the trigger entirely, not just hiding the temptation. Let's look at the mechanism of a notification.
Okay.
When David's phone buzzes on his desk, it isn't just a sound, it is a cue. His brain instantly releases a spike of dopamine.
And dopamine isn't the reward itself, right? It's the anticipation.
Precisely. It's the craving. Dopamine drives the motivation to seek the reward. So the phone buzzes, the dopamine spikes, and David's brain screams, there might be something novel and exciting in that message.
So it's hyping him up for a reward.
Exactly. Now let's say David uses his willpower to ignore the buzz and keep studying. He hasn't won the battle. Because the phone is still on his desk, a significant portion of his cognitive energy is now actively engaged in suppressing the urge to look.
Oh, that makes sense.
In psychology, this is known as dual task interference.
So he's trying to memorize his study materials, while a background process in his brain is constantly running a program called Don't Look at the Phone.
Yes. Yeah. And that background process burns an immense amount of mental calories. Willpower is an exhaustible resource.
It just runs out.
It does. By keeping the phone in another room or setting a hard app blocker, Emma removes the trigger. There is no buzz, there is no dopamine spike, there is no cognitive suppression required.
She's just outsmarting her own brain.
She recognized that her environment was dictating her behavior. So she stopped fighting her brain and started reshaping her environment. She preserved her cognitive energy for her actual life.
Okay, so let's say you implement these digital roadblocks. You put the phone in the other room, you lock the app, suddenly you reclaim 7 hours of your day.
It's a lot of free time.
It is. You hit this massive, quiet void. What happens to your brain when it suddenly unplugs? Because the conversation between David and Emma shifts radically here.
Right, gets much deeper.
Yeah, moving from physical tactics to a deeply vulnerable discussion about the emotional and psychological toll of the digital world. David admits that a huge source of his anxiety and lack of confidence stems from constantly comparing his everyday life to the lives he sees online.
It's an incredibly common side effect, and it points to a severe evolutionary mismatch.
Right. And Emma gives him the classic reminder, social media is just a highlight reel. But it's more than just feeling bad about someone else's vacation photos.
It's the sheer volume of it.
Yeah, Emma explains that constant exposure to this endless stream of information creates a subconscious ambient anxiety. And to combat this, she didn't just stare at the wall when she put her phone away.
That would drive anyone crazy.
True. She purposefully filled that new 7-hour void with reading books, going for long walks, exercising, and having face-to-face time with family. She tells David that as a direct result, she's sleeping better and her baseline stress has plummeted.
Those are all highly grounding activities.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Why does just looking at endless information make us stressed without us even realizing it?
To understand that, we have to look at the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center. The human brain evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to process information that was strictly relevant to our immediate local environment.
Like the people right around us.
Yes. You lived in a small tribe of maybe 150 people. The information you received was vital for immediate survival. A predator nearby, a change in the weather, the social dynamics of your immediate peers.
The scale of information was tiny.
Extremely localized. Now, subject that exact same primitive threat detection hardware to the modern digital feed.
Oh boy.
Right? You were bombarded with global crises, political outrage, natural disasters occurring thousands of miles away, and the curated top 1% highlight reels of 8 billion strangers.
It's just too much input.
You are fundamentally overloading the brain's processing capacity. The amygdala cannot differentiate between a threat on a screen halfway across the world and a threat right outside your physical door.
So your brain interprets the timeline as an immediate physical danger.
It places the nervous system into a chronic, low-grade state of sympathetic arousal, what we commonly call the fight-or-flight response.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. Your heart rate variability changes, cortisol drips into your bloodstream, and you feel anxious without really knowing why. Furthermore, regarding David's confidence, when you subject your brain to the highlight reels of thousands of people, your baseline for what constitutes a normal life shatters.
Because everyone else seems perfect.
Exactly. You are comparing your messy behind-the-scenes reality to a mathematically impossible standard of constant perfection.
Which explains the biological necessity of Emma's replacement activities. She didn't just find a hobby, she found an antidote.
Exactly. Reclaiming focus requires filling the void with activities that actively shift the nervous system out of that fight-or-flight state and into parasympathetic rest.
Like the walk?
Yes. Think about the mechanics of taking a walk, as Emma suggested. When you walk, your eyes scan the physical environment, moving side to side. This bilateral stimulation actually quiets the amygdala.
That is fascinating.
And reading a physical book forces your brain to follow a single linear narrative, rebuilding the attention span that the infinite scroll fragmented. Face-to-face interaction releases oxytocin, which buffers against stress.
So she's physically repairing her brain.
Emma moved her brain from an environment of artificial global urgency back to the natural, grounded rhythms of the physical world.
That shift from artificial urgency to natural rhythm is profound, but it leads to the ultimate hurdle of this deep dive. How do you actually make it stick?
Ah, the million-dollar question.
Right. We have all experienced the midnight epiphany where we delete every social media app on our phone only to re-download them in a moment of weakness 48 hours later.
Usually at like 11 p.m. on a Tuesday.
Exactly. Understanding the neuroscience and setting up app blockers is great, but how do we prevent the inevitable relapse?
Sustaining the change requires navigating the brain's resistance to deprivation. You can't just fight it.
Well, at the end of their conversation, David is really motivated. He sets a concrete goal. He wants to cut his screen time in half, dropping from 7 hours to 3.5 by next month.
Which is a huge drop.
It is, and Emma enthusiastically supports this, strongly advocating for small, gradual steps over drastic overnight purges. But David asks her a very pragmatic question. He points out that app blockers just throw up a warning screen. He asked her, didn't you ever just hit the ignored limit button when the prompt popped up?
And I'm sure she did it first.
Yeah, Emma is honest. She admits she was intensely tempted to bypass the limits at first, but she succeeded by leaning heavily on her internal motivation. She constantly reminded herself why she wanted to change, her desire for better sleep, lower stress, and actual focus.
This raises an important question about the architecture of human motivation. We just spent a significant amount of time praising physical friction, putting the phone in the other room, setting the digital locks.
Yeah.
But Emma's confession reveals a crucial limitation. Tactics alone are insufficient. The app blocker is a fantastic tool, but all it really does is create a 5-second gap between your impulse and your action.
It's a speed bump, not a brick wall. The prompt asks for permission to continue, and you still have to make a choice.
Exactly. And what fills that 5-second gap? If you don't have a deeply defined internal why, the primitive desire for a dopamine hit will win every single time.
Because the craving is too strong.
Right. Emma succeeded because her prefrontal cortex had a crystal-clear, abstract, goal mental peace and focus that was strong enough to override her limbic system's immediate craving for digital stimulation.
It's like having a North Star.
Exactly. When the temptation arose, she wasn't relying on blind, white-knuckled willpower. She actively weighed the cheap, immediate gratification of the scroll against the high-value reality of her own well-being.
So, what does this all mean? How can you, the learner, apply this gradual improvement approach to your own endless scrolling habits? Because her advice to David about stepping down gradually rather than going cold turkey, that's not just about being gentle with yourself, right? There's a biological reason cold turkey usually fails.
Oh, it's neurologically imperative. When you spend 7 hours a day hyper-stimulating your brain with rapid-fire digital content, your dopamine receptors actually downregulate.
They adjust to the high volume.
Yes, they become numb, requiring more and more stimulation to feel anything at all. If you suddenly drop from 7 hours to absolute zero, you shock the system.
The brain goes into withdrawal.
The brain rebels against the massive deprivation. Everyday analog, reality like reading a book or sitting quietly feels agonizingly boring because your dopamine receptors are still calibrated for a digital slot machine.
That makes so much sense.
Gradual improvement, like David cutting his time in half over a month, allows those receptors the time they need to upregulate and adjust to a naturally lower baseline of stimulation.
Yeah.
It makes the transition back to the physical world chemically sustainable.
Okay, let's pull this all together. As we bring this deep dive to a close, let's distill the core actionable mechanisms we've extracted from David and Emma's journey. First, you must confront your unedited data.
You can't fix what you won't measure.
Right. You cannot fix a behavioral baseline that you haven't objectively measured because your brain will lie to you about the time you've spent. Second, recognize that the just 5 minutes illusion is a trap set by frictionless, casino-like platform design. You are fighting an environment lacking natural stopping cues.
And third, don't rely on finite willpower. Build environmental roadblocks. Put the phone in another room to prevent the dopamine spike of a notification from draining your cognitive energy.
Yes. And fourth, understand the evolutionary mismatch. The ambient anxiety you feel online isn't a personal failing. It's your amygdala misinterpreting global highlight reels as immediate, localized threats.
You must purposefully fill the digital void with analog activities that shift your nervous system into parasympathetic rest.
And finally, when making the change, rely on gradual recalibration of your habits paired with a deeply personal why. Don't seek an overnight cold turkey perfection that will only shock your system into relapse.
It is a comprehensive, biologically grounded blueprint for taking back control of your attention.
It really is. And to you, the learner, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today, something that builds on everything Emma and David discussed. If these digital platforms are intentionally engineered by thousands of the smartest minds on Earth to hijack your attention and pull you into an endless, profitable void.
What if we push back?
Right. What if the most rebellious, countercultural act you can take today is simply sitting down and doing one single thing for an hour with absolutely no digital interruptions? Thank you so much for exploring with us on this deep dive. Keep protecting your time, stay curious, and we'll see you next time.